meeting. Thank you for hosting today. We appreciate it. It's always nice to see the different facilities, so, and we appreciate your hospitality. It's always a good thing when there's food. We'll start off the meeting with the approval of the February 2nd minutes. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Having a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. Our next board meeting will be on Friday, June 2nd at ISB in Fort Madison. And at this point, I'll call on Warden Carver to give the welcome. Thank you.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Welcome to Fort Dodge. Honored to host you guys today, along with Deputy Director Randy Gibbs, Director of Security Brian Foster, members of the Fort Dodge community. Welcome. Thank you guys for attending. I also have my executive team here, my business manager Chris Sayoff, my security director Tony Comp, and my treatment director Mike Bowman here also attending. So, as you guys know, I was at Anamosa prior here. I got here February 17th, took over as a warden here at Fort Dodge and North Central, of course. It's been a change of pace going from the oldest facility we have to one of the newest facilities we have, so it's been very interesting, very excited to be here. We do have a new IPI director, Bob Fairfax, he's also here. Looking forward to working with him and hopefully getting some more jobs inside our IPI warehouse here. We did lose our balloon, anagram balloons, had them, and now so we have hopefully get some more jobs inside so we can get our incarcerated individuals some more work experience. When they get out, they'll have something to fall back upon. Also, we did hire a reentry advisor through Iowa Workforce Development. Hopefully we can start some more apprenticeships back up here at Fort Dodge. Again, more jobs, more guys, more experience, always helps, you know, that along with education. Two of the biggest things to keep recidivism down. With that being said, I'll invite you guys to take a tour of the facility after the meeting today, if you guys are interested. And with that, I'll introduce Deputy Director Randy Gibbs.
Thank you, Chris.
Oh.
You know, it's my last meeting, but I have to ask questions of everybody that comes here. You know, last time we were here, you had a great dog program going on. Where do we stand as far as the dog programs go right now?
At the moment, we do not have it, and we're gonna look into some of these things going forward. They shut the place down for a little bit. There was a large disturbance last October. So looking at bringing some stuff back. I've gotten a lot of suggestions from the incarcerated individuals so far about what they'd like to have done. You know, being a new warden, they're gonna throw everything at me. So we're looking at different things and what we can reopen up and, you know, but on the same side, look at safety and security. So, you know, it's something we'll look at. I'm not sure yet at this point.
Okay.
I know we do have, you know, dogs still over at North Central, so we might add to that over on that side. I don't know yet. Okay, we'll see.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else? I was trying to get out here without getting any questions, you know.
Coming from Anamosa to Fort Dodge, what are some of the big differences and what are you doing to try to avoid some of the hardships you face over there?
Well, Anamosa, of course, is a lot older facility. Technology, you know, trying to get technology into there is very difficult with the age of the facility. Coming here, it's like going, you know, jumping into the 21st century basically with the amount of technology and the newness of the facility. It's been there's a lot less hardships I've had to deal with, you know, with regards to, you know, maintenance on facilities, things like that. It's been I can focus more on the well-being of the individuals in the facility and making sure that we get them back out into the society. it's been, it's a lot more focus on that and not having to worry about, is something falling apart, or we have, you know, what we're looking at with this, things like that, so it's been a little less stressful so far.
I was just wondering, as far as IPI goes, what is our main products that are produced here?
Right now is, we've got, we're working on a military glove, we're still working on that, and then that's.
Viridian Manufacturing, they produce stuff for the military, gloves, cold weather gloves, so when they're deployed out in wherever the region across the world might be, their hands stay warm while they're still holding their weapons. Fire equipment, you see if the fireman takes his helmet off, they've got the fireproof stuff on. Equipment like that, that's a company that we're working with out there. Polo Manufacturing is another, Chris, I don't, you don't mind,
No, go ahead, please.
Polo Manufacturing is another company that we work with that does medical goods, and we provide that type of stuff. As well as when you walk through the facility and you see the correctional officers, the pants they're wearing, the uniforms are all manufactured here. And our incarcerated individuals, products they buy in the canteen, sweatpants, sweatshirts, underwear, those are all manufactured here as well. We have a couple other companies, we have a real small operation going, but we hope, like Chris said, we hope to get back to where instead of employing 50 to 60 guys, we're employing 150, so that's our goal. So, sorry, Chris.
No, you're fine, you can answer that question probably better than I can.
I have a question about the inmates going from max to minimum, or are we going here to max? Or are the inmates going to stay, will we be transferring inmates from minimum to max, or how's that working? Because Anamosa is a maximum security.
That must have been medium security.
Well, that, I'll take care of that later.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Okay.
That's probably a question I can answer better. There are no plans at this point in time to change the security designation of Fort Dodge Correctional Facility. So it's still an SD4, and, you know, could its mission change going forward and help the department out in other ways? Absolutely, I'll never shut that down, but there are no plans to change Fort Dodge from a medium to a max or to a minimum.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question too. I think we talked about it at Rockwell City a little bit, but do you utilize the PEP program, or is it, working like North Central with education? With college, what that college?
I know there was talk of that, I'm not sure at this point where we're at with that right now. I don't have a good answer for you on that right at this point.
We can get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you.
I'll let you off the hook.
No, all right, and with that,
Well,
Randy,
thanks
it's all
for-
yours.
Thanks for warming them up, Warden.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure I'll have a joyous time out here. Welcome, everybody. I'm Randy Gibbs, Deputy Director of Prison Operations. So, Director Skinner unfortunately couldn't be here today, but she does send her regards to the group. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the service that Lisa and Larry has provided the state over the last 8 to 9 years on being board members, and so we sad to see you go, but we're grateful to have had the time with you. So thank you both for your service. With that said, I have a list of items to update you on. Our Learning Center, otherwise known as our academy, training academy, right? We've had 3 new employee training programs so far. These have been held at both central office in Des Moines and at IMCC. We kind of do the east-west thing and make it a little bit easier on our facilities since they're spread out through the state. January, it was slow, like a lot of things, it's slow going when you first start and you want to work out all the kinks and whatnot. So January we had 7, February 11, February, March 38, and so far this month, which I think graduation is next Thursday, 56. So the numbers are growing. We currently have, that's a total of 56 since January, but we have 48 currently in this class. So as you can see, they're progressing. And our hiring continues, we still continue to be very competitive with hiring. It's a struggle, as you know, worldwide, just not for the Iowa Department of Corrections. But it's good to see those numbers grow for our new employee training. So ASP, security change, and that's an action item for later. but I am here to announce that the Anamosa State Penitentiary is no longer a security designation 5, it is a security designation 4 as of today. That means it is a medium custody facility, no longer a medium max. And the action item for later is the change of that policy to reflect that. We did transfer a number of inmates in and out of just not Anamosa, but our other facilities in order to make that change. As you would imagine, anybody judged maximum custody for the most part went to the out-of-state penitentiary. Okay?
When you say for the most part.
Well, when you go in there and you say, I'll just throw out a number. Let's say there's 300 maximum security people. We dig deeper down and look and say, is that the appropriate classification for this person? If it is, they went to ISB. If it wasn't, they either stayed where they're at, or they came to a Fort Dodge, or they came to a Correctional. Okay?
Thank you.
So,
You bet.
is this change based entirely on moving around inmates, or were there structural or other changes made to the
Webster,
facility?
that's a great question. Nothing structurally has changed. Still the 40-foot wall, still the security barriers and razor wire, still the towers. So it was a matter of the classification of inmate that we are sending there. Good question.
So Randy, is there still capacity at Fort Madison for additional?
There absolutely is. In fact, what we also did at the other facilities, especially Fort Madison, is we dug deep down into that population as well. And so some of those folks were transferred out to the other facilities that did not need to live in a maximum security facility. Well, as you know, we swapped out Warden's Carberg and Warden's Lamb, so obviously we know that means Chris knows, right? Dan Clark retired in March, the head of IPI, right? And so you already heard Bob Fairfax speak, so we want to welcome Bob aboard. He is now the IPI Deputy Director.
Great.
Okay. So, the alignment bill, right? So we were a part of that alignment bill and something that we called the DOC merger, which merges community-based corrections with the Department of Corrections. So we've had several meetings since February with staff and leadership, districts to address any questions, any concerns, any related issues with the alignment bill. Director Skinner will continue to visit various sites throughout this coming year. We're working with DAS, Department of Management, OCIO, all the other state agencies to conclude this alignment, or work towards that conclusion anyway. Not everything's gonna be completed by July 1st. When you're onboarding several hundred employees, you can imagine what kind of a task that is. And so, over this next year, we plan on working towards that goal. But, with that said, I'll take your questions. Wow, come on, Larry, one more for old time's sake.
I was just curious, because the districts had their own boards and stuff, and then of course, how is that gonna work? Do they still have their own boards with the reconfiguration?
I'm gonna direct that question to Mr. Crawford.
Yeah, so the boards that are in existence now in all 8 judicial districts, they will be turned into advisory boards. As they stand today, they approve the budget for each district, they approve policy changes, they hire the district directors. Those tasks will now be the responsibility of the director of the Department of Corrections, instead of the local judicial district boards in each district.
Will there be any job cuts or staff that's community based?
No layoffs. No layoffs as part of this.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
I believe Michael Savala is up for role conditions administrative rules update.
Now for the fun part.
So I have administrative rule in front of you. So what this does is really just kind of a technical cleanup. What it does is the Department of Corrections used to have standard conditions of parole in their administrative rules. And it's really inconsistent because the parole board drives those issues. They're the ones that develop the standards of and conditions of parole, not DOC. So really, we're just striking those from our administrative rules. Really, they're more efficiently handled and processed by the parole board. As you'll see, just the one change on the sub-rule, it says the rules as established and approved by the Board of Parole. So this really is their area, and this really goes along with the governor's objective to really streamline and reduce the number of administrative rules that state agencies have. So this is just a good example of, you have the same language in both the Department of Corrections and the Board of Parole's administrative rules. So what this is really intended to do is just go in and strike the conditions of parole and leave that to the parole board. So that's why I just kind of call it a technical cleanup. So we did appear before the Administrative Rules Review Committee once already. They didn't have any questions. We offered a public hearing as part of the rule process. No one requested a public hearing, and we did not receive any written comments on this proposed change. So, open to any questions you might have. If not, it's an action item, so I need you to vote on moving this forward.
So moved.
All right.
Move that we support.
And second. Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
And those
Aye.
opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Ian. Okay, the next action item is the policy, and I think you have that in your packet, which is IOHO 03, housing plan. That's our department's policy on how we house our offenders. And the changes made in that policy are very few, and it's related to taking the Anamosa State Penitentiary from a designation 4-5 to a designation 4.
Anybody have any questions?
What medical classification center, what are those changes? How's that impact? I see that's green here. That's something we should be concerned about.
IMCC is a 4-5. It's solely based as a 4-5 because of intake. Since they're an intake center, you know, anybody that's sentenced to the Iowa Department of Corrections would start at Oakdale.
Okay.
And so I'm sure that's, Larry, probably why that's highlighted. And so typically we don't permanently house maximum security offenders at IMCC, but for that time of intake, we do.
Okay, understood.
It looks like it's just changing from because of its nature as a reception center to due to the nature of it being
Okay.
a reception center. Just
All right.
a semantic change, yeah.
I guess I do have a question, is why was it struck to take it out of the administrative code on page 3? This is- you can explain that.
Well, I would assume that Anamosa was designated as a 4-5 in the admin code. And so this line out here for a designation outlined in the Iowa Administrative Code. We don't go-
We don't have security designations.
It's not in there. So that's probably why it was deleted, is it was an error that the security designation was in the
Yeah,
code,
it's,
so.
And then they-
he is now in blue, so they struck it in red and then redid it.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
I just-
No, it is confusing. It confused me for a minute.
Yeah, I know. Okay, thank you.
Can you tell me a
Just
little
list
about
them, it doesn't change them.
ST4 facilities, temporarily housing, maximum individuals, and what those spaces look
Sure.
like?
An SD4 facility by our policy can house a small amount of maximum security offenders. That might be due to the facility's specific role in our department. I'll give you an idea. There's more than one reason. One would be, let's say an offender needs sexual offender treatment, so they'd have to go to Newton even though Newton's an SD4. Oakdale, we might decide to house temporarily some maximum security offenders due to an investigation at ISP at Oakdale or at Fort Dodge. There might be enemy situations to where we would have to house a person to keep them separate from others. So there's a number of reasons why we would allow, by our policy language, to house maximum security offenders at other places. Usually they're small numbers, usually it's under a dozen.
And you don't foresee an issue with that?
No, we don't. Most of the time, those individuals are in segregation. They're not in the general population generally.
Is there any mixing of juvenile and?
By code, it cannot. Basically, the juvenile offenders, they are housed at Oakdale right now, and they have to be out of sight and sound of adult offenders. Yes.
Any other questions? Hearing none, can I have a motion for approval?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Larry. Having a motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed?
Carries.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna pass off to Steve Dick is unable to make it today, so Nick Crawford will be delivering the financial statement.
Good morning, everyone. So I will be covering the budget update along with the legislative update. They kind of intertwine in this, so it works out nice enough. So I'll direct your attention to the handout that was provided to you on the financial status reports through the period ending March 2023. So we're 3/4 of the way done with the fiscal year at this point. So we would anticipate being below that 75% threshold for actual budget items used. And we're below that, so we're in a good position. So we're sitting at just at 72%, as you can see there in the bottom right-hand corner of that handout for funds expended. Central office totals are a little bit lower, so we're actually sitting at about 68% for central office expenditures at this point in the fiscal year. However, we do plan to evaluate areas that will need some assistance across the department as we close out the fiscal year to spend down the remainder of that $10 million that we received. As you all know, additional $10 million we received in FY22, which we were able to carry a decent chunk of that into this fiscal year. Although we have not been able to fill all of our vacancies across all of our institutions and central office, we have had some higher overtime numbers because of that, because we still need to fill those shifts. And inflationary costs have been a real issue for us. Things such as food, utilities, supplies, gas, any sort of supply that we need, you name it, it's gonna cost us more right now. So we're battling with that. And it has had an effect on our current year budget, but we still do remain in a very healthy position. So we'll also be just, evaluating our needs over the course of the final couple months. We're rounding out the fiscal year and just shift funds as needed throughout that time. So I'm gonna move on to more of a discussion regarding our vacancies at this point and what that looks like within our budget. So at the end of March, we're showing 258 total vacancies across all institutions across the state. Positive thing is that these numbers are down fairly considerably from our peak at the beginning of September of last year at 313. So we've seen some really positive progress. One of the things that has been very helpful has been a bonus program that we have implemented at 4 institutions across the state for new correctional officer hires. So that's at the Iowa State Penitentiary, the Anamosa State Penitentiary, the Iowa Medical and Classification Center, and I believe it's the new correctional Fort Dodge. So those are the 4 institutions that have implemented those new hire bonuses, along with a referral bonus. So if you're an employee here at the Fort Dodge Correctional Facility and you refer a new correctional officer who hasn't worked in the Department of Corrections before, and they get hired on, you receive a bonus, and then the new hire also receives a bonus. So that's been very helpful in reducing those numbers. As you all know, it's been a struggle for us. Moving on to the last sheet that you have there, it's just on the back side of what was provided. That is all of our capital expenditures. We're progressing with a number of projects that have been funded for FY '23. And you can just kind of see those numbers there. You've got the appropriation of 12 million, balanced budget not forward of 5 million. And then there at the bottom, you can see total expenses and encumbrances at 17.6 million. We'll continue to spend those dollars down as we move throughout the fiscal year. We have yet to have our RIF and TRF committee meetings in the legislature, so we don't know exactly what those budget numbers are going to look like. Hoping to have that in the coming weeks because their deadline is April 28th. That's the 110th day of session. Will they end that day? That's to be seen. So that is it for the budget update. I'm going to move into the legislative update. It's been a little while since I've been in front of you all, so there's been quite a bit that's happened in the legislature during that time. So as I had mentioned, we are approaching the official end of session, which is April 28th. Again, not exactly sure that they'll be able to get out in time, and I'll kind of explain why. So the budget process has begun, but we have yet to see any detailed numbers, specifically for the justice system's appropriations. Republicans in the House did release some target numbers just a couple of weeks ago, and that was at $884 million for the entire justice system's budget. So that's the Department of Corrections, Department of Public Safety, the judicial branch, all of those things. And it was not detailed into how that was going to be broken out. So we don't have an exact idea, but that number, that initial target was $10 million over what the governor requested in her budget request. So I think that's a positive sign of the direction that we're moving. Earlier this week, the Senate Appropriations Committee met for the first time to discuss their budget numbers. They did pass what they're calling a shell bill. So it's the language of all of the budget bills, right? It lines what the spending is for, but there's no numbers attached to it. So we, again, just don't know at this point in time exactly what those budget numbers are going to look like. But the number that we got from the House Republicans is very encouraging. So we're obviously keeping a very close eye on that and continuing to have conversations over at the Capitol to ensure that we have the resources that we need moving into the next fiscal year. Moving into a little bit more about alignment. I know Randy covered that a little bit. As you all know, on Tuesday, the governor officially signed the alignment bill. So that was the last step in that entire process. July 1 is the effective date of this alignment. So as I was mentioning before, that structural change with the local judicial district boards, that will go into effect on July 1. There's a lot of internal changes that we're working on from an administrative standpoint as of today. We actually have what's called an alignment working committee. So we have a staff person within the Department of Corrections who has been designated kind of overseeing the whole merger and kind of managing it from an administrative standpoint. We're meeting regularly with judicial district staff, with district directors to ensure that we're thinking of everything as we're moving through this process. Because come July 1, we are one system, we're one team, we're together in all of this. So we want to make sure that we're not missing anything on that July 1 date. A key piece of that, and something that we've talked about a lot throughout this process, is that we want to ensure that no services are interrupted come that July 1 date. No one's paycheck is interrupted come that July 1 date. And so what we've actually been able to do at this point is come to an agreement from an administrative standpoint that we will work on transitioning the payroll aspect of the merger, of the alignment, over the next fiscal year. So that will actually remain in their current systems that they have in place for payroll for all their staff. That will remain in place come July 1. And then over that next fiscal year, we'll work with each district to ensure that we get that changed over before the upcoming fiscal year. That's the intention. And as I mentioned, we have regularly scheduled meetings with CBC staff, with district directors to just go over all of these things, keep them in the loop constantly, so that they know and that staff around the state understand that we're working hard on this. They're a part of this with us. Because as I mentioned, we're one system, one team, once this merger, once this alignment is complete. That's all I have as far as an update. Anyone have questions? Anything I can help answer?
I have a question. Will the department be doing the hiring? Will it be the local government that's doing the hiring for the local, old CBC?
For each of the districts, that's a question that we've got. We've received a lot of questions throughout this process, as you can all probably imagine. We envision it working just like the prisons operate now. As far as day-to-day operations, central office is not going to be in there, dictating exactly what's going to go on. They'll have all of those hiring abilities just like they do now. Really, the key piece to take away from the legislation is that those judicial district boards are no longer doing the hiring of the district directors and not approving the policies, the budgets. That is all going to be the responsibility of the director of the Department of Corrections.
What's the biggest day-to-day change we can expect with all these officers going under the governor's office, governor's control?
We really don't envision any changes to day-to-day operations. As we work through this process with each of the districts and all of the staff, I think, we'll be meeting with them a little bit more, especially the district directors. We're not gonna go in with a wrecking ball, right, and just change everything that they're doing. Some districts are doing things better than others. We'd like to see those types of practices across all districts. Why can't we all be doing these good practices together? So really, it's gonna give us the opportunity to have those conversations at a high level with district directors and then ensure that we're using taxpayer dollars in the best way possible. Because that was a big reason for all of this with the Department of Corrections specifically.
One last question. Right now, I think that in our February meeting, we said it was approximately like 41,000 inmates or on.
Under supervision, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
so we have about 7,900 in institutions.
Right around that number, yeah, I think we're slightly over that right now.
What will change? Any changes?
As far as the amount of people on supervision,
Yes.
we think through this alignment process, we can create some consistency across districts that will help us operate in a much more efficient manner. It's hard to say exactly what kind of reduction we would see, but we do see some efficiencies. We do anticipate some efficiencies as we move through this process. Absolutely.
Is my recollection correct that Iowa was kind of a unicorn with how they handled the CBC?
Absolutely, yeah. We were the only state in the entire country that was organized this way. So it was an incredibly unique system. It had been 40 years since there had been any sort of change made within community-based corrections and that structure. And that goes for, across all state agencies. It had been 40 years since we had kind of lifted up the hood and checked to see what, how can we operate better? How can we operate more efficiently? We obviously want that.
So are there any benefits in reaching out to other states, or do you have any states that you feel like are gonna rise to the top of where you want Iowa to be?
Yeah, that was part of the process as we looked at all of this. What were other states doing? What is a more efficient system? What does that look like? And so I think what the final product is definitely, we arrived there by looking at other states and how they operate more efficiently because of this change in structure. Being the only state that is organized the way that we are now, it created barriers to change. The intent behind all of this was to provide better services to Highlands. So if we can do that by making this change, and it was a difficult process. You all were paying attention to what was going on in the legislature. We were there a lot. We answered a lot of questions. Obviously, with the bill passing, I think we were able to show that this was the right thing to do.
Hey, what's our relationship with the Board of Parole under this new reorg? Has it changed at all, or is it?
No, that won't change at all. The Board of Parole will have structural changes themselves. They were a part of this. So I'd encourage you to take a look at what those changes were.
They're not good part of our department or anything like that, but
Nope.
the reorg. Okay. And then, has our relationship in any way changed as far as DHS? I know there's been a big reorg over there, and I anticipate a change there as well.
Nope, there's no changes there. So we're Division 16 of the bill. I think we're on just over page 1300. No, it just talks about community-based corrections and the Department of Corrections. That's all that was touched in our portion of the bill.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we've come to the point in the meeting where we will take public comments. As is our practice, anybody is welcome to contribute with public comments. We will not respond to those today, but the department will make an effort within the next month, hopefully, or before the next meeting, to address any concerns that anybody has.
I do have something to ask. And I say this out of fear. As a person that has had phone calls from some people that have been released from one of the prisons, that there are two buildings, there is one CO that, and I don't know if this is the proper place to put it, but if there's one, there could be more. And I'm a registered nurse with a master's degree of over 40 years. I have worked with sex offenders. I have worked with children. I have education. Well, one of the officers, from what I'm hearing, has become a perp. And I'm fearful because in retaliation, these guys are getting wrote up. And then what happens is that whoever is over this person will tell them that if they say anything threatens them and they don't want their names mentioned, that they will be thrown in the hole. There's got to be some kind of paper trail somewhere that shows that you have had people in there that have been there long-standing with no write-ups, and all of a sudden, they get write-ups, or these people are released, and now they're talking because they know there will be retaliation, and you get a real fast phone call. And it's like, please bring this to their attention, have somebody investigate, boom. And it's people that do not know each other. It isn't inmates, it's family members in the outside that have been told different things by their family members in there. And verbatim, identical, the stories are the same. What do you do with that? What do we do with that? How do we get them help?
Do you have a name that we can look into?
Or a facility.
They're afraid to tell. I can give you the buildings when we're here.
Which facility are you talking about?
Newton. It's at Newton.
If you could get a name or anything more specific.
I do have more. I've got a lot more, but I don't want to. These people that,
So if we could, maybe I can speak to you after the meeting.
Yeah.
And gather some more information, and that way we're not putting this out into this arena. That's okay?
is that fair?
Yeah.
And then I appreciate it, but that is one of my concerns, you know? We're trying to be, I feel, we are trying to get people better. We are trying to correct the problem in the community. And when you have somebody inside the facility that is victimizing victims, you know, or perpetrators, have they been there too long? Have some of these COs, you know, been there too long and now they're perpetrators, is my question.
Thank you for your comments, and thank you, Nick, for
And thank
stepping
you.
in. I think you can finish
Yeah,
your
To
comments.
reiterate on that too, on the DOC website, there is a place to anonymously put in for pre-op investigations. And when that is done, Mrs. Newton Correctional Facility also will, while they're doing the investigation, put the people in the hole. They don't get credit for time served. These guys just wanna do their time and get out of there. And these people who are doing it are SK'd or lifers. And this isn't right because this is a sexual offender program and they're being sexually abused or manipulated in there. And then it comes back when they're brought in and questioned. And then they're known around the facility as a narc. And you want to be put into protective custody or protected. But then good time does not count. So they're being penalized for saying something that in reality, they didn't say something. It's the other people who unanimously posted this to have it investigated. You know, there needs to be a little more protection on that.
Hopefully they'll stick around and talk to the gentleman.
Okay.
Thank you. I do have one more question. Can we have a policy?
Can you reserve it for, I think Nick is in a better place than we as a board are. And it's really, he'll be gathering the details
Okay,
that are
thank
going
you.
to be important.
Yeah, it's not a parole board, so that's okay.
Okay, and if it's not in your wheelhouse, I know you'll get it to the right place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Any other public comments from anybody else? Seeing none, we will move on
What's
to
your last motion?
discussion amongst the board members.
I just want to say thank you. It's been a great 8 years. The last time I was here, I was actually doing my research work, talking to former students who were incarcerated, because I just wanted to know how could education get better. And I've learned a lot on the board. I think the Department of Corrections, community-based, are doing a great job. The focus is where it needs to be. So I wish all of you luck. Just thank you.
I'd love to echo those comments, man. It's been 9 years for me since I came on the board, and I was kind of young back then. My hair's getting grayer all the time, I guess, but the good news is I'm lighter now than I was 9 years ago, so, but it took cancer to correct that, and thankfully I'm sitting here. A year ago, I wasn't so certain that I was gonna be here, so thankfully for that. But I do, my background was the feds, and then the feds would pretty much just put them in prison and threw away the key, and that was it. And when I came to the Department of Corrections, it was so great to see all the programming and trying to return people to community and give them the tools where they can succeed once they get out of prison. And so it's kind of an eye-opening experience for me, and I really appreciate working with the people. Appreciate seeing some of the wardens that I helped select succeed. Chris is one of those, and I very much appreciate the quality of the wardens that we have right now. And love the department. And Randy twice. So, yeah, so anyway, I look around and I've got a lot of history with a lot of different people, and Mike has been always very helpful. And I think Nick, when I started, you were probably still at the governor's office at that point in time, I believe.
I might have been, yeah, that was years ago.
But anyway, I thank you so much. It's been a great 9 years. And I won't miss those early morning drives to the various facilities. So, Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Larry.
Yeah, on behalf of the board, great, many thanks to both of you for 8 and 9 years, that's huge. So thanks for your time and your attention and your insight.
I don't have any gray hair, Larry.
I'm a few years older yet.
Any other comments?
I just wanted to say I appreciated being on the board with you guys. Larry, I really and truly appreciate what you brought to the board since I've been on the board, and it's been an encouragement to me. It makes me want to go out and do more research, do more studying. That way I can ask the proper questions, because you always ask proper questions concerning the inmates, the staff, the Department of Corrections in a total. But I really appreciate you, and I'm going to miss you. At least I'm going to miss you also.
Thank you.
All right, and no other comments?
I'll make one comment. I guess I want to thank Nick for all the hard work at the legislature, because this was a tough, with the alignment, 1,600-page bill. So I know you guys worked really hard on that, and you're still working hard on that. So thank you for that. I really, was a big job this year, and still.
Well, I feel left out when I say that.
Likewise.
When I first got on the board, it was you who made everyone who made me feel the most comfortable. And I don't know if you remember my first meeting, but I sat down and I had to leave the room because I was drenched in sweat.
Oh.
I couldn't contain my anxiety and my sweat just because I couldn't believe that I was here. And people were taking me seriously enough to be here and to have a voice on this board. And you just made me feel comfortable and made me feel welcome. And I thank you for that, because by the next meeting I was a lot less sweaty.
You've done a great job.
Anybody else? All right, seeing no more questions, we will adjourn this month's meeting. If I may have a motion to adjourn.
I think Lisa should make the motion.
So moved.
And I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? All right.
Good deal.
How are you doing, Mike?
Yeah.
How are you? For years, I guess.
Well, I don't know.
Okay.
It's down below